Welcome to another episode of What If Economics. Let's look at 5 widely renowned companies that will likely not survive the impending recession in any recognizable way. Company number 1, the American Airlines Group. The American Airlines Group, formed by the merger of American Airlines and U.S. Airways back in December 2013, is the largest passenger airline business in the world as measured by the number of passengers flown. By the end of 2021, the company managed to rack up a respectable tally of 165 million passengers safely transported to their destinations, marking a solid recovery from the devastating downturn that unraveled throughout the 2020 financial reporting period. The effects of that 2020 slump are best encapsulated in the slashing of the company's revenues to just over $17 billion, and a consolidated net loss of nearly $9 billion to cap off an all-around disaster of a year. To say they got their wings clipped in 2020 would be more than appropriate. The losses continued for American right through to the end of 2021, but to see why we believe the company will not survive a recession in the next 12 months, you have to take a look at the firm's latest balance sheet. And one glaring discrepancy should immediately jump out at you. The company doesn't have enough assets to cover its liabilities. As at the end of the June quarter 2022, the company's total current liabilities amounted to $22.7 billion, whereas current assets on the books amounted to $18.5 billion. This puts the firm's dismal financial position squarely into perspective for financial pundits, who are looking at a $4 billion current assets deficit, this being carried by a loss-making entity, and we're heading into a recession with a very high likelihood of creating a credit crunch in the capital markets. The picture could not be any grimmer for this long-established U.S. company. While the company does seem to have some substantial cash and liquid investment reserves in a cash of close to $12.5 billion, considering that its operations have been running at costs ranging from $6 to $9 billion annually over the last 5 years, a prolonged downturn spanning 12 to 18 months, coupled with a likely funding drought for the same time period, could easily gobble up these reserves in very short order, and leave the iconic airline dangerously exposed to permanent financial ruin. Company number 2, AMC Entertainment. This entertainment giant operates the largest network of movie theaters in the US and Canada, boasting some 600 cinema locations in operation as at the time of recording. But what has given the company the most notoriety in recent times has been its continued status with retail investors as a so-called meme stock on online message boards, a situation which started with the unfolding of the GameStop Wall Street bets controversy that transpired in early 2021. Its meme stock status, however, will probably not avert its demise once a massive economic crash descends and sweeps across the country. Looking at the firm's recent financial history reveals the chronic nature of the pickle they are in. For one, the company has made a loss in 4 out of its last 5 complete years of commercial operations, and this situation really came to a head at the end of 2020 when the company reported a staggering financial loss of no less than $4.6 billion. And the picture gets a whole lot worse when you examine the company's recent balance sheet totals. With total current assets recorded at $1.2 billion, meant to cover current liabilities amounting to over $1.6 billion, it would be an absolute horror fest should a recession hit, with AMC still being in the position that it finds itself today. The company does have some cash and liquid assets on hand totaling $965 million, but virtually all of it was obtained through external corporate funding from 2021, a luxury that will likely not be available to AMC once the proverbial thing hits the fan in the next 6 to 12 months. The number 3 company is Bed Bath & Beyond. You know them primarily as a household goods retailer, but they also trade in the baby, beauty, and wellness markets as well. And as of May 28, 2022, the company has reportedly had under its control a total of 955 stores, spanning all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico and Canada. But like the 2 companies we previously mentioned, this firm too is in a deep financial quandary. Like AMC, the company has not reported a profit since fiscal year 2018. That is, 4 consecutive years of losses in its last 5 full years of operations. And the analysis gets even more depressing when you look at its prevailing liquidity situation. With its operating expenses hovering around $3 billion annually over the last 5 years, a cash and liquid assets reserve of only $107 million, and investors steering clear of the train wreck that appears to be looming ominously on the horizon for the company, the reality for Bed Bath & Beyond does not inspire much optimism. The C-suite should probably be hastening their preparations for an inevitable collapse of the company. Another company headed for ruin should a recession hit is the pizza restaurant Papa John's. This popular pizza joint is the 4th largest pizza restaurant chain in America behind Little Caesars, Pizza Hut, and Domino's Pizza. And as of June 26, 2022, the company had a global roster totaling 5,571 locations scattered across 49 countries and incorporating both company-owned and franchise operations. But financially speaking, the company is and has for a long time been running on fumes. To begin with, for the 5 financial years leading up to 2021, the company has been running a deficit on the books in its assets to liabilities coverage, with the latest figures for June 2022 showing both a current asset as well as an overall deficit on their all-important balance sheet. Operating profits, unfortunately, will not provide much aid to this glaring liquidity position, as the company has been virtually just getting by, effectively in break-even territory for much of the period in question. Without a recession, you could probably see Papa John's eking out an existence, but considering a prolonged and deep demand shock, and with their quarterly operating expenses more than doubling the $52 million held in liquidity reserves, the objective conclusion one would have to make is that Papa John's is in a true existential crisis. And finally, the fifth company on our list of probable recession casualties is the tech and transport company, Uber Technologies. The trailblazing ride-sharing outfit is well known all around the world and is used by millions of people daily for their varied transportation needs. In addition to its taxi-like service, Uber also has a significant presence in the food and package delivery spaces. To illustrate their dominance, the company made roughly 2.8 billion trips globally in fiscal year 2021. But beneath all the glamour of the tech and marketing, there is trouble lurking in the shadows for the San Francisco-based company, and it has been clear to see for many since the inception of the company. And that is the reality that the company has been mostly staying afloat since its founding with the help of periodic capital injections, both in equity and debt source funding. Since 2017, the company and its founders have managed to raise over $17.5 billion in capital financing, despite turning a profit only once in the 5-year period, and racking up an accumulated deficit of over $23.5 billion. While the company does have substantial liquidity with around $4.3 billion in reserve on its balance sheet, the significant cost of its operations, topping $10 billion in 2021, as well as a likely waning of appetite for funding a loss-making entity in the middle of a recession, means that a prolonged slowdown in demand for all Uber services may well result in the company collapsing into a scrap heap in a truly monumental fail. And those are some of the most prominent companies likely to be in significant economic peril at the onset of a recession in the US economy. The ones that will probably be saved by investors and creditors, despite their deplorable performance, historically and presently, are Uber Technologies, just because they are a tech outfit and still a relatively young up-and-comer, as well as Bed Bath & Beyond, which seems to have secured liquidity support, if the deal doesn't fall through, to give them a boost through to the other side of the recession. We will, unfortunately, likely have to say goodbye to American Airlines, AMC, and Papa John's, once the recession ends and the reckoning is complete. These firms are all in incredibly competitive markets, with much more viable players vying for the same tightly held credit and investment resources available in the capital markets. We are likely to see mergers and the retirement of these brand names, as the acquiring companies attempt to salvage their usable parts to make the best play out of a disastrous situation. Please leave a comment below with your thoughts on these companies, and feel free to suggest other companies that you think might be vulnerable to a recession. Stay tuned for more from What If Economics. See you in the next one.